Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of She Talks Business. Today, we are going to continue to talk about books. We're going to talk about two books today, and I'm calling this episode A Tale of Two Books because I want to talk to you about two different books and outcomes that I was able to generate in my business based on these two different books. And the reason that I'm sharing these two different books with you is because both books, the path to the results that I was able to achieve from these books was very different. And so I want to share the methodology with you so that you can think about how to use either one of these paths in your business. So let's get started. The first book that I want to talk to you about is Who Not How. And Who Not How was written by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy. And I read this book and I had major epiphanies that you don't really need to figure out how to do something. What you really need to figure out is who can help you do something. And when you change your frame of reference from always trying to figure out how am I going to get that done, which is something I think a lot of us ask ourselves on a regular basis, to who can do that for me or who can help me to get that done, your brain starts to think differently. So as soon as you find the right who to partner with what it is that you want to accomplish, you gain tremendous leverage, because when you have a big idea and there are things that you want to do, all the work that you have to do already doesn't go away. You still have to do that work. And so you need additional support. You need a who, you need a partner who can help you. In this book, one of the tools that the authors talk about is something called an impact filter. And an impact filter really allows you as a business owner, as an individual, to get clarity on the thing that you want to accomplish. So whatever that thing is, it helps you to get really clear on why it matters, what the outcomes look like, what success looks like, and what kind of is the negative side of not being able to accomplish this thing, which is really powerful. Because when you look at the big picture and you run it through this impact filter, and if you Google strategic coach impact filter, you can find one of those impact filters online and see for yourself. But when you do that process, it's almost like two things happen. One, you become much more committed to the outcome that you desire. And two, when you find your who and you hand them an impact filter, the lines of communication are super duper clear. They understand exactly what it is that you want to accomplish because you've taken the time to do the work and answer the questions to get really clear yourself on why this matters and exactly what outcome it is that you're looking for. So I want to share how reading that book impacted my business. There were two things that had been sitting on the back burner for me for quite some time that I had these big ideas around, but I wasn't able to actually launch. I wasn't able to actually finish. And I don't mean launch as in a traditional launch. I mean launch as in just get it done. And the first thing was my podcast. I had had several failed starts with the podcast. I had all kinds of ideas, but I just couldn't seem to get the podcast to come together. And I couldn't seem to motivate myself to record enough episodes. I couldn't seem to get out of analysis paralysis. I couldn't seem to get all the moving parts lined up the way that I needed them to be able to actually release this baby into the world. And so the first thing I did is I filled out the impact filter for the podcast and I assigned the who to Michelle on my team. Now, Michelle is my executive assistant. She's not a podcast guru, but let me tell you, when I made her the who for the podcast, she took extreme ownership over being the who for that podcast. And she made sure that all the other who's that we needed to do the production, to set it up on my website, to do the graphic design, to all that, to set us up on iTunes and all those other places, she made sure that everybody got their part done so that we could launch on time. And she made sure that I did my part in recording episodes. And she made sure that I got this podcast planning sheet every week before I interviewed people so that I had all the tools that I needed to make it easy to get the work done. So sometimes the who doesn't need to be someone who's actually going to do all the work. It just needs to be somebody who can get the work done. It needs to be somebody who will take ownership the way she did to help us move forward. And, we're closing in on episode 100. So I obviously picked the right who in that case. And I was able to take something that had been on my list of priorities for probably 2 years, if not longer. I actually think I first started thinking about a podcast in 2014. That's when I bought Podcaster's Paradise and I never did anything with it. So 2014, and I launched this podcast in 2021. That's 7 years of thinking about something and not getting it done because I didn't have a who that could help me get it done. So that was one thing. The second thing that I really wanted to do is I wanted to write my second book. And I had this epiphany that maybe I should ask Alan Weiss to write a book with me. And I was excited and a little bit scared at the prospect of doing that. But I knew that if Alan was my who, that I had enough of a, I guess you call it a healthy dose of respect and fear for him, that there was no way that I wouldn't follow through and do what I needed to do. So I reached out to Alan and asked him if he would consider writing a book with me. And as you all know, if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, he said yes. And we ended up writing a book together. He was a powerful who because I knew that I would be motivated to do my part. I knew that I would feel a certain amount of tension and pressure to hold myself accountable. It's really important when you pick a who, depending on what it is that you want to accomplish, that you don't pick somebody who is going to be a pushover. You need to pick the right who that's either going to execute for you like Michelle did for me, or somebody who's going to hold you in a place of tension where you really want to deliver like Alan did for me. And so both of those things, both of those outcomes were the result of reading Who Not How and just taking two things that I really wanted to do and acting on them. And literally within 30 days of me reaching out and filling out the impact filter for both of those things, both of those projects were in motion and both of those projects came to fruition very, very, very quickly. So there's tremendous power in finding the right people to help you get things done in your business. And often the things that holds us back from our success isn't that we don't have great ideas. It's that we don't have people that can help us to implement. And having a team that can help you to implement is really important. And I have a team that does that. I have a team that does implementation. But the problem is sometimes when it's your own team, you can be like the cobbler who has no shoes. You can fall to the bottom of the priority list. And I've seen that happen many, many times within my own business, and it shouldn't happen that way. And so you want to be really clear on getting the right who's who are going to help you to make things happen quickly and be able to see the benefit and the impact to your business of doing that. So that's one book that had a huge effect by actually acting on the information. So that's one way. You take the idea, you take the concept from a book and you actually run with it and you do it. The second way is different though. The second way is you emulate what you see someone else doing. You are inspired by how they have approached something and you decide that you can do that too. So the second book that I want to talk to you about is Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I picked this book up years ago. And when I was reading his book, I was blown away by the concept that he had taken his process for how to build a story brand. That's what he called it. And he had translated that process into a book. He had translated that process into a video series. He had translated that process into an online course. And he had translated it into an in-person event. And I thought, wow, I have this process that I use for strategy. And it's a significant investment to do strategy work with me. And it's hidden in strategy. And so I decided that I was going to take my process and I was going to do exactly what Donald Miller did. I was going to create an in-person event. I was going to create a course and I was going to create a book. Now, I need a who. I need a who to help me with the course, and I need a who to help me with the book. But I have done the in-person event. I've done the in-person event several times. I have the outline and the framework for the book. I just haven't done it. And I know what I need to do to run the course. I just want to run the course live, because if I run the course live and I take people through it live, then I have the framework to record the course. But watching what Donald Miller did and seeing how he took his system and then applied the system to different consumable formats made me see how to take a system inside of my business and apply it to different formats. And while I don't have all the formats that he has yet, I know what I need to do. I need a who to help me. And I've already started down that path with the roadmap workshop. But when you look at what someone else has done in their business, often you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just deconstruct what they did and ask yourself, how is this applicable to my business? How can I take what I've learned from looking at how this person is running their business through the lens of the book and the course and the workshop? And how can I apply it to something that I do in my business? How can I emulate, not copy and steal, but how can I emulate what they have done so that I can get similar results in my business? And if you have systems in your business, systems are scalable. You just have to figure out what format you want to scale them to. So I share with you these two books because one of the things that people say to me often is, I don't know how to implement after I read. And I think sometimes we get caught up in trying to implement everything from a book instead of looking at what is the one big idea that you took away from the book. And so in Who Not How, my big idea was I need a who for my big projects if I'm ever going to finish them. And we actually use who language inside of my business now. Who's the who on this project? Who's the who on this? And that really helps us to get things done because the who takes on extreme ownership. And then the big idea from building a story brand was, how do you translate your systems into more consumable services for people in your business? And that was my big idea. It wasn't necessarily what he did. It was, how do I take my methodology and use it and apply it in different formats the way that he has done that in his business? So don't get caught up in thinking when you read a book that you have to do every single thing. When you read a book, ask yourself, what is the big idea that I've taken away from this book? And how can I apply that big idea to get a result in my business? And sometimes you're going to read a book and there is no big idea. It's just great information and you got some great insights from it. But there are other times that you're going to read a book and you're going to walk away with a big idea. And I want to encourage you to capture that big idea, write it down, go Google impact filter, get clear on what it is that you want to accomplish as a result of that big idea, and then ask yourself who can help you so that you can take it from idea to execution and get a result. Because I got to tell you, if I were to look at the cost of a book and I were to look at the value in my business that I've gotten from the ideas that I've taken from books, the return on investment is ginormous. Another book that I read was John Lee Dumas's book, The Common Path to Uncommon Success. And when I read his book, I had an idea for a program called Accelerate. And I literally just put it out there as an idea. And Accelerate turned into a course that generated, tens of thousands of dollars, not $20,000 and $30,000. I don't actually remember how much right now, but I know that it was an idea that came from a $30 book that basically 100x my return on investment. So when you're reading, if you haven't listened to the podcast on 5 levels of reading, go back and listen to it, because when you get those insights and you take them to the next level and you implement, that's when you get the true ROI from reading a book. Now, if you haven't joined us in Thought Readers, please go to thoughtreaders.com. Register. It's a free reading community for 2023. Go join us. Read with us. We're reading some amazing books. We read Smart Brevity last month. We're reading Belonging to the Brand this month. And next month, we're reading Necessary Endings. So all kinds of great books, diverse topics and information, and definitely things that can help you in your business. Thanks for listening to this episode of She Talks Business. And I'm curious, Have you read a book that you have acted on that has made a significant impact in your life or business? If so, I want to know what that book was. I'm going to start a library in Thought Readers, an idea that Cass Bald had, and we are going to list tons of these great books in there so that you never run out of ideas when it comes to what to read next. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week. Bye for now.